Good evening, everyone, and welcome to the first policy committee of the new school year for September 13th, 2022. Please be advised that this is being live streamed and will be available on the board's YouTube website. I'd like to call this meeting to order, and we'll start off with the land acknowledgement.
Halton, as we know it today,
is rich in the history and modern traditions
of many First Nations and the Métis.
From the lands of the Anishinaabe
to the Attawandaron,
the Haudenosaunee,
and the Métis.
These lands surrounding the Great Lakes
are steeped in Indigenous history.
As we gather today
on these treaty lands,
our Catholic social teachings
call us in solidarity
with our Indigenous brothers and sisters
to honor and respect the four directions:
lands, waters, plants, animals, and ancestors
that walked before us.
All these wonderful elements of creation exist,
gifted to us by our Creator God. We acknowledge and thank
the Mississaugas of the Credit First Nation
for being stewards of this traditional territory.
If you will join me in the sign of our faith, in the name of the Father, and the Son, and the Holy Spirit. Heavenly Father, show our children the right path this school year. May they not be influenced by the unwise, but seek your purposes in all things. Please guide their choices, show us the right path as a family, that we would place our time and energy on the things that you want us to invest in. In the name of the Father, and the Son, and the Holy Spirit, amen.
Thank you, Trustee Agnew. Moving on to item 2, the approval of the agenda. Trustees, can I have someone move for the approval of the agenda?
Moved O'Brien.
Moved by Trustee Agnew, seconded by Trustee O'Brien. Is there any trustee opposed? Thank you. Moving on to item 3, declarations of conflict of interest. Are there any declarations of conflict of interest this evening? Seeing none, we'll move on to item 4, delegations. There were no delegations received for this policy meeting. Item number 5, approval of the minutes from the June 14th, 2022 meeting. Trustees, can I have someone please move?
I'll move it.
Moved by Trustee O'Hearn-Chernota, seconded by? Seconded by Trustee Agnew. Thank you, trustees. Is there anybody opposed?
I will abstain, Madam Chair.
Okay, I'll take it to, or sorry, Trustee DeRosa abstains. Is there any other opposition or abstentions? Seeing none, all are in favor except for Trustee DeRosa, who has abstained. Moving on to item number 6, action items. 6.1, policy I-19, occupational health and safety. Trustees, can I have somebody please move that the policy committee recommend policy I-19 be forwarded to the September 20th, 2022 regular board meeting for approval?
Moved O'Brien.
Moved by Trustee O'Brien, thank you. Seconded by?
I'll second it.
Trustee O'Hearn-Chernota, thank you. And we have, who is speaking to this evening? I think it's Superintendent Oldman. Superintendent Oldman, you have the floor.
Thank you. Good evening, and through you, Madam Chair.
Policy I-19 is for policy committee review and consideration. That what has been noted is it is in compliance with our legislative requirements. It is to be reviewed annually and where appropriate and necessary, revised to that end. Following, the anticipated recommendation by the board, we would obviously have to be in compliance with posting the policy as well in all of our sites and locations. The changes noted in the attached are really ultimately minor housekeeping changes, and we have updated the links in the references section so that's policy I-19 for your review and consideration.
Thank you, Superintendent Oldman. Trustees, I'll open up the floor. Does anybody have any questions? Okay. Seeing none, I'll take it. Oh, sorry, Trustee O'Brien, you have the floor.
Thank you, through you, Madam Chair, to Superintendent Oldman. Just for clarification, if a employee has a part of their duty to work with a student that has a violent history at all, under this policy, just for clarification, the teacher or the employee does have the right to knowledge about this. Is that correct?
Superintendent Ullman, do you need clarification on that question? I think what Trustee O'Brien's asking is would the staff have notice in advance?
Yes, thank you, and through you, Madam Chair. I think I'm clarified, but I appreciate if I have any other colleagues who want to step in as well. Ultimately, if there's a, I'll call it, a defined safety plan, say for an instance, for a child, the staff member, whether they're a permanent staff member or an occasional member, should have access to the appropriate information that they would require in order to support that student. So in keeping with this policy.
Thank you.
Did you have a follow-up, Trustee O'Brien?
No, Madam Chair.
Okay, thank you.
Thanks, Madam Chair.
I don't see any other trustees with questions, so we'll take this to a recorded vote. Trustee O'Hearn-Chernalta.
In favor.
Trustee Agnew.
In favor.
Trustee Duart.
In favor.
Trustee Murphy.
In favor.
Trustee O'Brien.
In favor.
Thank you. Trustee DeRosa.
In favor, Madam Chair.
Thank you. And I believe we have some student trustees on this evening. So I just, Trustee Chua.
In favor.
Thank you. And Trustee Kuzma.
In favor.
And I think we don't have all three trustees. So
I'm here.
Oh, sorry, I don't see you listed.
No worries. In favor.
Katie Bowie, there you are. Trustee Bowie. In favor? Thank you. So the policy passes and it will be brought to the next board meeting. Thank you, trustees. Moving on to item 6.2, policy I-35, trustee honorarium. So trustees, may I have somebody please move that the policy committee recommend that policy I-35 trustee honorarium be forwarded to the September 20th, 2022 regular board meeting for approval.
I'll move it.
Moved by Trustee O'Hearn-Chernalta, seconded by
Agnew.
Trustee Agnew. Thank you, trustees. We'll pass this on to Superintendent Lofts. Superintendent Lofts, you have the floor.
Thank you, through you, Madam Chair, and good evening, everyone. We're pleased to present policy 135, trustee honoraria for approval. Just some background as to why this policy is being presented again, given that we last reviewed it back in March of 2020. Per Ontario Regulation 357.06, trustees must establish a policy on or before October 15th of the calendar year the term of office begins. Therefore, since the election is October 24th, 2022, this policy needs to be approved by October 15th, 2022. So per 357.06, this policy must include paid items for the upcoming term, including a base amount, attendance amount, distance amount, and enrollment amount, which is what we have attached here as well. Thus, the presented policy 135 is very minor changes, housekeeping items mostly, with the most substantial change being the change in the office term from December 1st to November 15th. Madam Chair, I'm available for any questions that trustees may have.
Thank you, Superintendent Lofts. Trustees, I'll open up the floor. Are there any questions? Okay, seeing none, we'll take this to a recorded vote. Trustee DeRosa?
In favor.
Trustee O'Brien?
In favor.
Trustee Dewart?
In favor.
Trustee O'Hearn-Chernota?
In favor.
Trustee Agnew?
In favor.
Trustee Murphy?
In favor.
Trustee Chua?
In favor.
Trustee Kuzma?
In favor.
And Trustee Bowie?
In favor.
Thank you, trustees. The policy I-35 will be presented at the next board meeting. Moving on to item 6.3, policy I-38, school board trustee election guidelines. Trustees, can I have somebody please move that the policy committee recommend that policy I-38 school board trustee election guidelines be forwarded to the September 20th, 22 regular board meeting for approval?
I can move it.
Moved by Trustee Agnew, seconded by Trustee O'Hearn-Chernota. Thank you. We have Director Kroll. Director Kroll, I'll pass it over to you.
Good evening, and through you, Madam Chair. Just wanted to bring us information about this updated policy. We did make some changes as part of the regular policy review cycle. The policy does provide information of those seeking re-election and those that are interested in sort of seeking election. And it also discussed their responsibilities as candidates. We did make some changes because we, in sort of reviewing this and looking through it, recognized that there were already things clearly outlined in the Municipal Elections Act. And it's important to sort of distinguish the role that HCPSB is not have specific responsibilities around the election process. So we removed some redundant language, we removed language that's already covered in the Municipal Elections Act, and we made some minor housekeeping changes throughout. Happy, Madam Chair, to answer any questions that trustees may have.
Thank you, Director Kroll. I'll open it up to trustees. Trustee DeRosa, you have.
Thank you, Madam Chair, through you for Superintendent or Director Kroll. My apologies.
It's all good.
Just a point of clarification. I think somewhere in the package there's some restriction of candidates who are running from campaigning in the schools. In other words, there's an expectation that the schools would remain neutral.
Correct.
What happens to the candidate who's actually running for council?
Through you, Madam Chair, that's a good question. We weren't really considering municipal elections outside of trustee elections, but in terms of let me backtrack. Whenever we have elections, so whether they're municipal elections or federal or provincial elections, we provide guidance to schools to make sure that trustees would have received communication that was sent out to schools early in the year, identifying what sort of the do's and do nots for schools. So we don't typically allow political candidates to come into schools during election periods. So no, sort of to clarify my statement there, Trustee DeRosa, we provide guidelines to all of our schools to ensure that they're neutral places during elections.
Thank you, Director Kroll. Trustee DeRosa, do you have a follow-up?
Yes, Madam Chair, thank you. So if I'm to understand then, the candidates who are running for a municipal post will not be able to campaign in the schools because effectively they will still be trustees and obligated to this policy, correct?
Through you, Madam Chair, it's not because they're trustees, Trustee DeRosa, it's because they're running for public office. So if we had someone running for MPP or MP, we would apply the same rules for them, that we have the same guidelines for our schools to say that it would be inappropriate for one candidate to come in and to be part of a certain, to be seen as campaigning within a school. So
Okay,
regardless of what election they're running for.
Right, that clarifies it for me. Thank you very much.
Thank you, trustees. Are there any other questions? Seeing none, we'll take this to a recorded vote. Thank you, Director Kroll. Trustee Agnew.
In favor?
Trustee Bowie.
In favor.
Trustee Chua.
In favor.
Trustee DeRosa.
In favor?
Trustee Duart.
In favor.
Trustee Kuzma.
In favor.
Trustee Murphy.
In favor.
Trustee O'Brien.
In favor.
Trustee O'Hearn-Chernotta.
In favor?
Thank you, trustees. Policy I-38 will be forwarded to next week's board meeting. Moving on to item 6.4. Oh, yeah, sorry, 6.4. This is policy I-47, information security. Trustees, can I have somebody please move that the policy committee recommends that policy I-47, information security, be forwarded to September 20th to regular board meeting for approval at its third reading. I do not believe there has been any changes. This is just simply the third reading. However, we do have Mark Gershak online here with us, our manager of, oh, good question. Mark, what is your title again?
Manager Privacy Records Information Management. It's a long title. I'll talk to Colleen about that one, so maybe we can work on that.
Okay, sounds good. So trustees, I will, if you're okay with Mark, I'm gonna just open up to questions.
Yeah, that's fine.
Did I get a mover? Actually, I need a mover first, please.
I'll move it.
Moved by Trustee O'Hearn-Chernotta, seconded by Trustee Agnew. And I will open up the floor, and Trustee O'Brien, you have the floor.
Thank you, through you, Madam Chair, and to Mark. Mark, has there been a policy created associated with, a procedure created associated with this policy?
Thank you, and through you, Trustee O'Brien. Yes, the answer is yes. We have V-101 is the accompanying procedure. It's posted on our website.
V-1, sorry.
VI-101.
Thank you.
Trustees, do we have any other questions? Seeing none, I'll take this to a recorded vote. Trustee O'Hearn-Chernotta.
In favor?
Trustee O'Brien.
Could you come back to me, please?
Yes, I can. Trustee Murphy.
In favor.
Trustee Kuzma.
In favor.
Trustee Duart.
In favor.
Trustee DeRosa.
In favor.
Trustee Chua.
In favor.
Trustee Bowie.
In favor.
Trustee Agnew.
In favor?
Trustee O'Brien.
Opposed.
I'm also in favor. So all in favor except for one opposition. The policy will be forwarded to the September 22nd board meeting for its third and final reading. Thank you, Mark. Moving on to item 6.5, policy III-15, workplace violence. Trustees, can I have someone please move that the policy committee recommend policy III-15, workplace violence, be forwarded to the September 20th, 22 regular board meeting for approval?
I'll move it.
Thank you. Trustee O'Hearn-Chernotta moves. Can I have a seconder? Trustee Agnew, thank you. And this is Superintendent Oldman. You have the floor.
Thank you. Hi again, and through you, Madam Chair. Again, in compliance with our legislative requirements, this policy would be reviewed annually and posted following approval, and any necessary edits would be accompanied through that revision. There were minor housekeeping changes, again, an updated references section, as well as just kind of, again, in keeping, I guess, with the housekeeping changes, trying to be I guess, more inclusive in our language and more accompanied, but ultimately I would garner them as minor housekeeping changes, and it's attached for your review and consideration.
Thank you, Superintendent Ullman. Trustees, I'll open up the floor. Do we have any questions? Okay, seeing none, we'll take it to a recorded vote. Trustee Agnew.
In favor?
Trustee Bowie?
In favor.
Trustee Chua?
In favor.
Trustee DeRosa?
Will you come back to me, Madam Chair?
Yep. Trustee Dewart?
In favor.
Trustee Kuzma?
In favor.
Trustee Murphy?
In favor.
Trustee O'Brien?
In favor.
Trustee O'Hearn-Chernota?
In favor?
Trustee DeRosa?
In favor.
Also in favor. The policy will be sent to the September 22nd board meeting. Thank you, Superintendent Ullman. I think you're probably back up on deck shortly, so I won't say goodbye to you just yet. So item 6.6, policy III-16, workplace discrimination and harassment. Trustees, can I have someone please move that the policy committee recommend that policy III-16, workplace discrimination and harassment, be forwarded to the September 20th, 2022 regular board meeting for approval?
Moved O'Brien.
Moved by Trustee O'Brien, seconded by Trustee O'Hearn-Chernota. Thank you. Superintendent Ullman, you're back up.
I am. So I think that's an apology needs to be extended. So thank you, and through you, Madam Chair. So policy III-16, workplace discrimination harassment, again, in our normal annual cycle of review. It outlines a number of, again, housekeeping updates, some reference to, I appreciate a procedure that's been recently come to force of VI 102 as well. So embedding that element for protection of staff and ultimately students in that same regard. It is attached for your review and consideration.
Thank you, Superintendent Ullman. And for those of you, the procedure that she's referencing, that Superintendent Ullman's referencing, is the complaints resolution process, workplace discrimination and harassment. Responding PI-102, responding to hate or bias motivated incidents involving or impacting students. I just want to comment that this procedure has already been implemented by staff. They spent a day training, I believe, during PD session. We will get to it through the procedures, but I think it's important for everybody to know that it is a new procedure that has already been implemented, and you can tell that a lot of work went into it. It's fantastic. You know, amazing to the staff who worked on this. I understand that all senior staff worked on this, and you can tell it was something that a lot of thought was put into, and I'm looking forward to see this implemented in this school year. So thank you. Trustees, is there any questions after I rambled on? I don't see anybody's hand up, but I'll ask again. And we will get a chance, if there's any questions about the procedure, to ask about it when we get to that section.
Oh, there you go.
Trustee DeRosa, you have the floor.
Thank you, Madam Chair. This is just a question, a clarification for me. Yeah, it looks like there's been a lot of work done on this, and I appreciate that. Could you make me understand, Superintendent Ullman, what are the reporting avenues for when harassment, discrimination is detected? How do we report it? What means do we have for reporting it?
Superintendent Ullman, do we want to, Trustee DeRosa, I believe that's in the procedure piece, but Superintendent Ullman, if you want to direct Trustee DeRosa to which policy, procedure that is, that'd be great.
Thank you, and through you, Madam Chair. So Trustee DeRosa, for staff pertaining specifically to workplace discrimination, harassment, or violence, that would be under VIO 4, and that's the first noted on the associated policies and procedures. That is a pre-existing, that is up for some modifications that have been made to streamline the process, but as well the new administrative procedure that Chair Guzzo was noting earlier was VI 102, which is the last, I think, noted under associated policies and procedures. Yeah, it's just scaled just down from the screen that I can see, but that would be for students who are in a position of, I'll say, victim or complainant who want to lodge a similar complaint, and we can walk through that. That's been highlighted for students because in order for that reporting mechanism, so there's kind of a well sussed out kind of program and process and workflow for students, depending on if it's it's impacting or involving students. So that could be a student to student or a staff member and student being impacted. So there's a process through VI 102 for the student side, and then VI 04 for staff specifically.
Do you have a follow-up question, Trustee DeRosa?
No, I'm okay, thank you.
Thank you. Moving on to the next speaker, Trustee O'Brien, you have the floor.
Thank you, through you, Madam Chair. And this may come up with more with the procedure, so direct me if I am wrong on this. To Superintendent Ullman. Superintendent Ullman, in determining whether or not there actually was harassment, can you just talk about the rubric that is used?
Trustee O'Brien, that is the procedure. So if we,
I don't mind.
Yeah, maybe let's finish through this and then we can get to the procedure, and you can ask the question once we get through the procedure, if that's okay.
Yep, thanks.
Thanks. Trustees, do we have any other questions on the policy? Seeing none, thank you, Superintendent Ullman. We'll take it to a recorded vote. Trustee Agnew.
In favor?
Trustee Bowie. Trustee Bowie. Okay. Trustee Chua.
In favor.
Trustee DeRosa.
I will abstain, Madam Chair.
Trustee Duart.
In favor.
Trustee Kuzma.
In favor.
Trustee Murphy.
In favor.
Trustee O'Brien.
In favor.
Trustee O'Hearn-Chanota.
In favor.
I'm also in favor. The policy will be brought to the next board meeting on September 22nd. So, okay, sorry. Trustee Bowie says that she is in favor. Her mic does not seem to be working. Trustee Bowie, if you want to log out and come back in, I can wait a minute before I move on to the next thing, if that helps. Okay, so we'll just give Trustee Bowie a minute to go out and come back in. And we'll move on to, when she comes back, item 7. We don't have any discussion items, so we'll be moving right into item 8, which is our information items. And they're back. Trustee Bowie, does that seem to have fixed the issue?
Can you hear me?
I can.
Oh, perfect. Okay, thank you.
No worries. All right, so move on to item 8.1. Or item 8. So these are, trustees, these are the procedures that are accompanying the previous policies that we have just discussed. Are there any questions? And I know that there were some, so we'll start with, we'll open up the floor and we'll go based on the first question that comes forward with the first policy procedure. Trustees? Trustee O'Brien, you had a question in regards to workplace discrimination and harassment and violence, I believe. You have the.
I did, and thank you through Madam Chair. I think that's the first one in order that I have. Yes. So again, through Madam Chair to Superintendent Ullman, just walk us through the rubric that you would use to determine whether or not an action of anyone, student or staff, would actually meet the requirements of harassment. And because I noticed there's a lot of things mentioned there, like teasing and epithets and those kind of things. And I just wondered, actually, when people sit down and do evaluate this, what rubric they use. Thank you.
Superintendent Ullman, are you able to answer the question?
Thank you, and through Madam Chair, I will endeavor to. I can confirm that there is not a rubric, I says, so to speak. I mean, by law, I mean, depending on if we're dealing with an allegation of discrimination, we would look first and foremost to understand the protected ground. Obviously, if that's not obvious in its initial submission, just that we're understanding whether we're dealing with, you know, I guess an allegation of discrimination and harassment. So trying to understand that element is an important piece. I think another element would be really in assessing, there's a credibility assessment and in the information. It's important to first speak with a complainant. I think that's what the process tries to highlight in VIO 4. At the end of the day, the complainant you know, is the voice that you're centering the concern over. And then through that, you are speaking with appropriate witnesses who can help provide clarity regarding the allegations. And you're doing that on an absolute need to know basis and trying to be exhaustive in that effort, and also providing an opportunity to a respondent. Ultimately, you know, I know the word was used of rubric. It's really more of a balance of probabilities on what a reasonable person, this is kind of what the law indicates, is what a reasonable person can conclude occurred. So you're looking for, you know, details that may align. So like kind of corroboration and details and nuances that are noted. So there's not really a rubric, so to speak, Trustee O'Brien, but there's certainly a due process that needs to follow out, and timeliness is obviously an important element within that. When a complaint's coming forward, you know, there's some timelines to that end, but you have to work. And then these will seem like two opposing kind of ideologies, but you have to work both promptly but also thoroughly when an allegation is brought forward, and those kind of feel like kind of competing pieces, but I think they're really important for any investigator taking suit, whether in an informal or formal complaint being brought forward. I hope that maybe provides some clarity into the investigation process.
It does. Thank you, Superintendent. You must excuse me for the word rubric.
No.
I come from the education world, and that's the word I'm kind of used to. I may have another question later, but I will get back in the queue.
Thanks, Trustee O'Brien. Is there any other questions on this policy? I mean, this procedure, trustees? Okay, so we'll move on. Trustees, are there any other questions on any other the procedures that have been presented?
Yes.
Trustee O'Brien, you have the floor.
Okay, thank you, through Madam Chair, and I'm not as prepared as I usually am. Excuse me. Through you, Madam Chair, to Mark, I believe it would be the procedure on electronic monitoring, which is mentioned. Question one: is this associated with a particular policy?
Through you, Madam Chair, and Trustee O'Brien, yes, we will be adding this to the information security policy.
Okay. Yeah, okay.
Follow-up question, Trustee O'Brien?
Yes, Madam Chair, if you don't mind. And through you, Madam Chair, to Mark. It mentions staff. So does this procedure on electronic monitoring apply to trustees?
Yes, it does.
Thank you.
Thank you, Trustee O'Brien. Moving on to Trustee O'Hearn-Chernota.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Through you, I would like to talk about or discuss, I have a couple questions in regards to VI 102. And I guess my question is, very fulsome procedure. I did read through it. I probably have to read through it about 2 or 3 more times to really get all the specifics. But I guess my question is, how is this going to be rolled out in the schools specifically to make sure that all of the staff and students, et cetera, understand that this is here and what the procedure is to be used for and how it will progress? That's really my question.
Thank you, Trustee Ahern-Ternota. I see Director Kroll has his camera on, so we'll have. I guess you're taking the lead on this, and I see Ms. Jeroman has her hand up as well. So we'll start with you, Director Kroll.
Sorry, and through you, Madam Chair, just to clarify, is this for procedure 6-102 you're talking about?
This is moving on to the VI-102. Responding to hate and or bias motivated incidents involving or impacting students. So it's a new procedure.
Perfect. I just want to make sure we're talking about the same one. Trustee Ahern-Ternota, I'll start. I think certainly would ask CETA to sort of help. We've done some of the work already. So we did training for our administrators prior to the start of the school year. We spent a half day working through this with them, looking at unpacking the procedure with them, having them work through case studies on how to apply the procedure, make sure they clearly understand the role that they play in dealing with these incidents, and as well as the support that they can receive from the board through HR, through family school superintendents, through others as well, and how to sort of work through the process, work through the procedure. We then had our administrators roll this out to all of our school staff on the September 1st PA day. So they received training to make sure they understand their roles and responsibilities. For example, when they need to report, what they need to report, and who they need to report it to. I would say the next step for us certainly would be to continue to make sure that students are aware of that. So we have asked our principals to be discussing this at divisional and grade assemblies that they'd be having right about now to make sure that students are aware that this process is open and available to them. And it's going to be ongoing. This isn't just a one and done for us. This is something that, as was alluded to earlier, we spent a lot of time thinking and planning through. CETA did a wonderful job in kind of leading us through this work to create this procedure. Maybe I'll turn it over to her to sort of fill in the blanks, if that's okay.
Thanks, Director Kroll. Sorry, I'm sorry.
Hey, it's all good.
Hi, CETA, welcome. The other thing too, just FYI, I don't think I mentioned it, but the reporting tool has also gone live on our website, the self-reporting tool for students. So CETA, I'll pass it over to you so you can add onto what Director Kroll just let us in.
Good evening, and through you, Madam Chair. Yeah, so that's exactly what I was going to say, that the reporting tool has also been posted on our website. So the CEC website under Human Rights and Equity, but also in each of the elementary school websites and the secondary school websites. So in elementary school websites, it's under Parents, Safety and Wellbeing. At the secondary sites, it's listed under Students, Health and Wellbeing. Administrators were requested to sort of, use the student assemblies and various other opportunities throughout the year to, encourage, to create awareness of the reporting tool, and then, create environments where students feel safe to be able to report incidents, knowing that action will be taken in a prompt and timely manner. So that's sort of in ways in which we've rolled it out, and we'll continue to provide, training around understanding issues, identifying what's a hate or bias motivated incident, and helping administrators provide that wraparound support.
Thank you for those both. I guess my question, the second part of that would be, so we need to get it to our students so they understand the tools there and how to use it and why we're using it, and let's hope it's zero, but we know it's not going to be that way. A term that's used a lot is confirmation of understanding. So how will we make sure, or do our best to make sure, that we have a confirmation of understanding for all of our students? The staff and the administrators, yes, have been fully trained, and I'm sure they'll be very up to speed on this, but how will we know that the students really understand what this tool is for? Is it going to be maybe just case by case? If someone reports something, it's having that one-on-one discussion. I think I read that in the procedure as well.
Sorry, we have a bit of a delay because we're all in the board room this evening, so we're trying to coordinate it so we don't give any feedback to anybody. So I apologize for the delays. Yes, go ahead.
Yeah, so we've been actually sort of proactively trying to create an understanding among students around what are their rights and responsibilities under the code, the dignity of the human person, sort of, tying it into those pieces from last year onwards. So these have been, robust conversations that are being had in schools to create that foundational understanding of what does dignity mean, what are your rights and responsibilities under the code, what is language that is harmful, that's hurtful. So as you may recall, we had released the protocol, which was widely shared last year. So this procedure really builds on much of that foundational work. We've got sort of posters up in most schools, or almost all schools, that speaks to what does it mean, when you talk about disrupting harmful behavior or supporting students. So some of that work around creating that understanding has been started off in the previous school year. And of course, it's an ongoing process. I think we need to keep coming back to it, which is why one of the suggestions was to sort of proactively speak about these issues, during student assemblies at the beginning of the year, but also use, for example, November and, like Bullying Prevention Week to again reinforce some of those messages and create that understanding, because I think you point out a really important piece, that it's important to continuously create that understanding and that foundational knowledge. But having said that, this procedure, we took it out to different student groups for their feedback as well. And I must say, as always, our students are brilliant and already have a really keen understanding and in many ways are able to show us the way in terms of what we really need to be thinking about. So, that's always been a piece that I also wanted to sort of acknowledge.
Thank you, Trustee O'Hearn-Chernota. Thank you, Director Kroll and Sita, much appreciated. So Trustee Bowie has her hand up. So Trustee Bowie, is this in regards to this procedure that we're talking about right now?
Yes, it is.
Okay, perfect. Okay, you have the floor.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I'm going to be a little cheeky and not ask a question, but I just wanted to say that we, as student trustees last year, were involved. We had the opportunity to consult on this procedure as well, and it's excellent, and our feedback was well taken, which we, of course, really appreciate. And I know that the students were heavily involved, so I just wanted to commend Ms. Jayaraman and Interim Director Kroll for their work, and thank them for involving student voice so heavily. And I just wanted to say that, of course, as student trustees this year, we'll be continuing that promotion of that through our avenues at Senate and through our other avenues in the schools. So just thank you again for your work and for involving the students.
Thank you for your words, Trustee Bowie. I think, actually, absolutely, we all concur. A lot of work was put into it, and it definitely shows. And thank you, as always, for students for participating in it. That's so important. Trustee O'Brien, I'm going to ask if you have a question in regards to this procedure, or regarding this procedure, not in regards, but regarding this procedure.
Madam Chair, I do.
Okay, so then you have the floor.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Through you, Madam Chair, to Sita. Sita, the term anti-Black racism, this has come up before. I know you've spoken to this. We did have one of our parents, a Black parent, even say that they were not comfortable with the term itself. I recently had a ratepayer ask me why the term anti-Asian racism is included. I'm still struggling with that term myself. Can you speak to that?
Cedar, if you could address this, that'd be great.
I'm not sure I understood the question. So Trustee O'Brien, if you could just repeat the question. Is it about why anti-Black racism, or is it about why not anti-Asian racism? Can you clarify, please?
Well, I suppose one anti-racism encompass all of it. And why is anti-Black racism included and anti-Asian racism is not? That was the question that was asked me.
Yes, Sita, are you comfortable? I know this has been asked in the past and answered, but maybe if you're comfortable answering it, that would be.
Point of order, Madam Chair. Anti-Asianism racism has never been addressed. So I'm the person asking why that was not.
I'm sorry, Trustee O'Brien. With all due respect, that's not a point of order. But in regards to the anti-Black racism piece, if she's not comfortable answering it because it's been answered, then that's how we will proceed. Sita, I'll leave it up to you.
I can definitely try and through you, Madam Chair. So anti-Black racism, as we referred to earlier, speaks to the particular and unique histories, experiences, inequitable outcomes experienced by people of African descent and heritage, and speaks to those particular histories which are different from other paths to Canada, which are different from other histories in terms of racism. Why is anti-Black racism important? Because again, we've looked at, and data has shown us, when you look at outcomes in education, that Black students have, have had inequitable, disproportionate outcomes, and inequitable outcomes when it comes to everything from graduation rates to, higher suspension rates, to, hypervigilance, et cetera, et cetera. So recognizing that unique history and the difference in experience and the ongoing legacy of that of that racism, there's a need to focus specifically on anti-Black racism. We have had in this past year as well sessions throughout the school year focusing on anti-Asian racism, understanding the roots of that, as we've had sessions on understanding anti-Semitism and how that impacts students in education. We've also had numerous sessions on Islamophobia. What does that look like in education? So we've had various topics focusing on the different isms in particular to those communities as well. But looking at the evidence, looking at the outcomes, it's really important for us to focus on anti-Black racism as its own piece and look at how we can disrupt, dismantle, and rebuild with Black students at the center. I hope that answers your question.
Thank you, Trustee O'Brien. Thank you, Sita. Trustee O'Brien, do you have a follow-up?
I do, and I think it was partially answered why anti-Black racism is included. If there's been numerous sessions on anti-Asian racism, knowing full well their history of oppression, why is that term not included in this? That's what I'm wondering. If you could speak to that through you, Madam Chair, to Sita.
Sita, are you comfortable in answering why we haven't listed all?
Through you again, Madam Chair, I think that it's important to acknowledge that yes, we need to look at issues of anti-Asian racism as well. When we speak to these terms broadly, when we speak about anti-racism, anti-oppression, it's seen as an umbrella term that captures all those pieces of anti-racism and anti-oppression, and so it's sort of that's the broader term that's used. But within that, we do recognize that there is a need to focus specifically, and which is what we've been doing as well.
Thank you, Sita. Trustees, do we have any other questions for procedure VI-102? Okay, seeing none, I have Trustee Agnew has a question. Trustee Agnew, it's in regards to policy, the policy committee work plan, I believe, correct? Yeah. Working group, 8.7.
Thank you, and through you, Madam Chair. Just a really quick question, looking at the members of the group and not obviously knowing everyone intimately, but just curious as far as representation from our special education department, from an accessibility perspective, when policies are being looked at initially, do we have, who's sort of representing that lens? I think it's amazing that we've got Sita on there to take a look at things from an equity and inclusivity perspective. I'm just wondering the same from our special education or accessibility perspective.
Do we want to, Superintendent Bakite, can you take that question?
I can, and thank you through you, Madam Chair. Thanks for the question, Trustee Agnew. So this is the policy working group, which is formulated of all the of administrators, so principals and vice principals, and they do a review of an initial review of the policies and procedures. Then the policies and procedures are handed over to the departments. And so within the departments, the superintendents responsible for the procedures and policies will have their respective personnel review them as well.
Okay, sorry. I'm going to be yelling. So follow up. So thank you for that, and I think I understood that part. But I guess my question is looking at things from an overall lens. So not a policy that may be specific to a department. So let's just say that we have a policy that comes through. I'm going to make this up. We have a policy that comes through on recreation or on school forms or electronic forms or something. So, you know, that might be given to the department that would essentially handle that, but from an accessibility lens, from a special education lens, from an impact that may have, again, from that perspective, who's looking at that? Are these policies brought to this table, the determination made at that point, then they go out to the respective departments, but who's giving an overall lens that every policy is being viewed from an accessibility perspective? Like I see CETA on there, so I feel comfortable knowing that these policies are all being looked at from an equity and inclusive education opportunity. But what are we doing? Are we doing something similar in that vein when it comes to disability, accessibility, and special education?
Superintendent Bakite?
Yeah, thank you. Through you, Madam Chair. So we do have a broad scope oversight with Andrea Swindon, Communications Department. We will have embedded in those administrators on the policy working group are also people who have had, for an example, a special ed background. We also have, when we're releasing it to the departments, we have embedded in those departments people who are specializing in, for example, you mentioned spec ed, and and I know you're probably familiar with this, that the chiefs will review it depending on their department. And then it all is summed up with all superintendents having an opportunity to review the policies prior to getting to this point.
I just want to make, so thank you. I just want to make sure that every policy that we're taking a look at, and you know, I'm looking at this from a singular lens at this point. I'm just making sure that every policy that we're reviewing is making sure that there is some sort of lens taking a look at that from an accessibility, inclusivity perspective. So whether that be specific to spec ed or whether that's be specific to people in the disability community. So making sure that we are taking a look at things. So our communication means all accessible, our facilities accessible, all that kind of stuff. I just want to make sure that we are taking a look at that lens, and I'm just not sure from that perspective who the people on this. So take the spec ed part out of it, Superintendent, okay? Even just from an accessibility perspective, that is a very unique perspective and lens to have. But I just want to make sure so that when it gets to the board table, it gets somewhere, we're not kind of, you know, making sure at that point that it's met that criteria. So that would be my only ask.
Just to complete that, Trustee Agnew, we do have also Superintendent Oldman from Human Resources who does look at it from that lens as well, from an accessibility lens and through the relevant procedures and policies for accessibility.
Great, thank you.
Okay. Thanks, Trustee Agnew. Thanks, Superintendent Bakite. Seeing no further people in the queue, we'll move on to item 9, miscellaneous information. There is no miscellaneous information. Point 10, no correspondence received. Item 11, there's no need to go in camera. Item 12, can I have a motion to excuse Trustee Carabella?
I'll move it.
Moved by Trustee O'Hearn-Chernota, seconded by?
I will second.
Trustee DeRosa, thank you. Anybody opposed? Okay. Moving on to item 13, which is motion to adjourn. Trustees, can I have a motion to adjourn?
I'll move.
Okay, well, all three at the same time. So we'll do Trustee Agnew, seconded by Trustee DeRosa. Anybody opposed? Seeing none, Trustee DeRosa, could you please lead us in the closing prayer?
Thank you, Madam Chair. In the name of the Father, and the Son, and the Holy Spirit. Our Father, who art in heaven, thy kingdom come, thy will be done, on earth as it is in heaven. Give us this day our daily bread, and forgive us our trespasses as we forgive those who trespass against us. And lead us not into temptation, but deliver us from evil. Amen. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you, Trustee DeRosa. Thank you, everyone, for attending. That concludes our policy meeting for this evening. See you next week.